local people, important issues. CBS 10 WILM's weekly focus on the Lower Cape Fear region. This is Byline Wilmington with your host, Don Ansell.
Welcome and good morning. Well, today we begin a series of programs featuring the candidates running for Wilmington City Council and Mayor. Our first guest is challenging the incumbent and says he'll be elected the next mayor of Wilmington. Please welcome and join us for a one-on-one conversation with Paul Knight.
Hello, Don.
Good to see you. Thank you for coming in.
Good to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
We go way back.
Yes, we do.
I was trying to think of how far back. When did we first meet?
I think I met you 87, 86.
Yes.
Right around there when you were managing Wave Radio.
Another life.
You were pulling. That's where you really lost your hair, I believe, isn't it?
I think you started to say, right, I pulled it out. What made you decide to run?
Well, it's a combination of things. The way the country is right now, government just seems to be out of control. They've forgotten what we the people, really stands for. It should be a government by the people and for the people, and I think they're off track very much. From Washington to Raleigh, especially in Raleigh, and even right here on the local scene.
Who encouraged you to run?
Really, the government.
That
was my encouragement. Well, what really was the thing that broke the straw that broke the camel's back was when we had that tea party. And I saw all those people, that was roughly 12, 13, 1,400 people that were wanting to talk to our city council about the annexation issue. And they were citizens of Wilmington plus soon to be citizens of Wilmington. And the way the council treated them just appalled me. And I was there and I saw it. And I said, something's got to change. How can I do it?
So if you were part of council, if you were mayor at the time, you would have talked to all those 1,400 people one-on-one?
No. But you know what I would have done? The council had information way before that meeting that there was going to be a large crowd. They maybe should have put it in a different venue. They maybe should have allowed, there were seats that were becoming open at the meeting when people would leave after their part of the business, but they weren't allowing other people to come in. This is all on video. I mean, it's not me making this up. I would have maybe rescheduled that particular topic, but it gets back to the openness of the government on a local level here in Wilmington. And that's one of the driving forces with me, is that government has to be more open to the public, and the public has to be more involved with government. When
you first announced, the Star News characterized you as a newcomer, and they called it a lopsided race, I think, was the quote that I saw.
David and Goliath.
They said you're running against a 5-year incumbent, which your challenger has a lot of name recognition, and you weren't raising the money that's needed to run a challenging campaign. How would you characterize your campaign now? Have you been raising money?
No, money is a problem because I've basically financed my entire campaign here. And
does that translate to support?
No, it doesn't, because I have a team of about 25 volunteers that are very active with me. I've knocked on about 500 to 550 doors and talked to the citizens. And out of all the door knocking, I've only found 3 that were supportive of Bill Sappho. The rest said there's time for change. They're not voting for any incumbents in any of them.
Did you say you went to 500 people?
550,
and you only had 3?
Somewhere 500 to 550.
That said they were supporting your opponent.
Yes. Now, that area, I want to preface that a little bit. The area I walked mainly in was the Phase 2 annexed area, and those people are still upset about being forcibly annexed.
All right, and for our viewers, can maybe define yourself where you are on the political spectrum. There's extremes on both ends, liberal and conservative. There's moderates.
Well, I hate defining that because I hate doing it. I'm going to. First of all, I don't really want to be a politician. I want to be a representative. I want to listen to what people have to say. I want to always provide a conduit for them to get to their government by. If you had to, I am a conservative. And I am a registered Republican. And if you don't believe that this race is partisan, it's about Republicans and Democrats. Now, they say it's a nonpartisan race. it is as partisan as it can be. And I would set, if you drew a line in the middle, I would be, if this was way over and this was the middle, I'm sitting right about here. I can work with Democrats, independents, libertarians, Republicans. I can work with anyone that has some common sense and a will inside themselves to work with me.
How relative is common sense? Because most people think that
most politicians lose it.
But don't you think most people think that what they think is common sense and what the other person thinks, if it's not in line with their thinking, is not common sense?
Well,
It's a relative issue.
Let's use an example, okay? All right. Bad economic times, talking about tax increase. Let's spend $20,000 to go to a convention in Washington.
Well, let's talk about the budget.
I mean,
because that's what
that's common sense says you don't do things like that.
Let's talk about
just
the budget.
the appearance of it is bad.
How do you compare last year's budget with the new budget, the new fiscal year budget that we're in?
Well, let's look at what they did. Okay, common sense. The city council, Bill Saffo and the city council do not want to put an emphasis that crime is bad in Wilmington. We're almost 2 times the national average in crime. He says, oh, we've reduced crime 7%. Well, one of the basics of what a city is to provide its citizens is police, fire, protection. Yet, to balance their budget, they offer early retirement to 9 police officers. All right, these 9 police officers are gone. But then they get stimulus money. They say, oh, we got this stimulus money, and we've, added 9 police officers to the police department. They didn't add, they replaced. And those officers are going to take 10 months before they're on the street protecting us again. They should have kept the 9 police officers, cut the budget spending in some other way.
How?
Right off the bat, putting up signs over at College and Martin Luther King Parkway that cost an outrageous amount of money. That shouldn't have happened.
What did that? When you say it costs, I mean that's kind of a minuscule.
I've heard minuscule. It's $100,000 to. I've heard anywhere from $100,000 to $1.4 million is what that sign cost. Now the $100,000 came from the city. The 1.4 came from various contractors I heard talk about it. So I'll lean in the city. It was $100,000 that didn't need to be spent on that. And then you say, how do we cut? Well, you have to look at the other city departments, the ones that don't provide the critical services. There are ways there could have been 9 people somewhere else that could have, it's bad times. You've got to make hard decisions that may have lost their jobs or had to have lost their jobs.
They reduced the city budget by, what percent? It was reduced.
I can't remember the exact percentage.
It was 7. It was 7%.
That was the crime rate that he said.
No, the city budget is 7% less in this fiscal year than it was in the previous fiscal year.
But the city manager said that next year, we might have to raise taxes 10%.
Well,
you think they're going to raise taxes in an election year?
What would you do? What would you do to further cut if you say that they're spending too much? Do you think
I would look at all the city employee positions, because in any business, in most cases, employees are your biggest expense.
Okay, we're going to, they want us to take a break. We're going to take a break. Okay. We'll come back, and I'll let you finish that, and we'll move on. Stay with us. We're talking to Paul Knight, candidate for mayor in this November election. Stay with us.